Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Sunday morning chat, which will be varied as usual. First of all, the giveaway draw I will do later today and get that posted probably, well, hopefully sometime today, if not first thing tomorrow morning. But I will do the draw today, so keep your eye out for that. And in advance, congratulations to the 5 winners, but a reminder that you will have to do a bit of work. You will have to get in touch with me, and we will have to exchange emails about, you know, a suitable orchid nursery where you can, where I can organise a voucher code for you so that you can put it towards orchids or accessories or whatever you choose to do. I don't mind as long as it's orchid related, and we'll go from there. So we look forward to that. A couple of new blooms. The Vanda has opened. Hang on, where's me zoom? I'm not getting it down at the moment. So that's opening up nicely. That is going to be a hell of a spike. That'll be far superior to the previous spike. And the blooms last time did not last at all well. They just got frazzled in the heat. They just didn't make it. This is normally a long-lasting bloom on the purple one. So hopefully now the heat wave's gone and we're back to sensible temperatures and not getting frazzled in the sun coming through the roof, they should last a good amount of time. But there's a good number of blooms on there. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There's probably a dozen blooms, and they will increase in size. These open up to a certain size and then grow. The actual blooms grow, so over the next sort of week or so they will get even larger. It's a very large flowered Vanda, that one. No fragrance, typical of Vandas. So that's opened up recently, probably yesterday. The little delicate Phalaenopsis is now open. It's difficult, I mean, I'm at low light levels here at the moment, it's early in the day, but it has a real delicacy to it. It's got some spotting, some different shades of colouring on it, and a delightful coloured lip, but very tiny. I mean, it's a mini Phalaenopsis anyway. I'll give you a quick update. I mean, this was a task I took on for Danny specifically. A while back she was discussing the growth inhibitors used on, certainly on the nobly type hybrids, to keep them compact and bring them into bloom earlier. And I had a chat with Peter White yesterday at the show, and just a discussion. He's on the selection committee for 2 of the really large producers, one in the Netherlands, one in Germany, and they have a committee that look at the new hybrids and decide which ones are going to go into mass production that will hit our market in quite an incredibly fast time. He did actually say that they are perfecting the art of getting Phalaenopsis in bloom to the market faster and faster and faster all the time. And their business model is that they are throwaway plants, and as a consequence we do have potential problems with some of these plants. They are using hormones across the board, and it's not just orchids. Other nurseries growing other plants are doing the same thing. It's catching on and changing all the time, and the processes will actually speed up the plant's maturing processes to get them to bloom faster, which means they don't have to keep them so long, so they cut down their costs, and you know, more compact plants, brighter colours, all the sorts of things that adding hormones into the growing process can do. These are closely guarded trade secrets. You're not going to ever find out what they use, just the fact that they use something. That's about as close as you're going to get. But specifically for Danny, just to confirm that they are definitely using hormone-related processes with the mass-produced Phalaenopsis. Now, Peter White said the growth inhibitors are one thing, but the hormone processes is a different, slightly different process, and in theory, once those plants are sold, those processes are lost, and it could affect the plant's growth, but it should only affect them for a very short time. But they are going to suffer a culture shock, simply on the grounds that they've grown in a virtually perfect environment over their whole lifespan, and have been given, you know, fertilizers and hormone processes through that growing life, and then once they're sold, they lose it. So it is quite a culture shock for them, and there could be some, you know, dramatic loss of growth. A retarding process could set in simply on the grounds that they're not getting what they used to get before they were sold. So you know, there is some possible knock-on effects from that. And the nurseries that do the mass producing, strictly speaking, don't give a monkeys. At the end of the day, once the plants can get into bloom, go to market and be sold, that they wipe their hands at that point. So if the plants aren't that good following that initial flowering, they don't care. They expect us to throw them away and buy another one. That's the business model. So you have to bear that in mind. And I've certainly seen quite a few people have had trouble with what looked like perfectly healthy Phalaenopsis bought in bloom, and then like the next year or so they just don't seem to grow very well. They don't seem to have any vigour. You know, they get smaller leaves, roots stop growing, all sorts of things are happening to some of these mass-produced plants that are not ideal. That's the polite version. So that's that done. Right, some apologies. I had to go and pick up my daughter yesterday to go to the show. By the time we got to the show, it was quite late in the afternoon, and both of us were really hungry because we hadn't eaten, you know. So the first job was to get in and get something to eat and a drink. So we didn't get into the show to start looking around until 3:30, and the show closes at 4:30. And this particular time they had to close early because there was another event in the same hall immediately following. So they were asked specifically if they could get out a little bit earlier than normal. So we didn't get long looking round the plants. It didn't matter quite so much because, quite honestly, on the competition tables there wasn't a lot. There were an awful lot of people walked away with a cup because they were the only entry in the class. It was that low on plants this year. So yet again you can see the effects of the heat wave we've had, and how many growers have been affected. The competition tables were a bit light. But as a consequence of the time constraints plus some business things I had to deal with people, I didn't get to film. They didn't even turn the camera on. So I've got no film of the show, which is a shame, but so be it. And I've got another big apology to make. There was a guy came from the Cornwall Orchid Society, basically. I presume he brought me some Deesers. That was the general idea. And while I was having some food with my daughter and chatting to some of the members, one of the guys came up and he said, "Are you expecting to see somebody from the Cornwall Orchid Society?" And I said, "Yes, I think he's got me some plants." And I was told, "Well, he's here and he's sort of waiting to see you." And I said, "Well, we're going to finish our food and everything, and then I'll be into the hall in a minute, you know." And apparently Glenn went off and told the guy that I was here, I was having a bite to eat, and I would be in shortly. And unfortunately, by the time we got into the hall, he'd gone. Now you have to bear in mind, that's a hell of a drive to come from Cornwall to our show. You know, that's a hell of a drive. And there may have been a time constraint, you know, he might have had to get back at a certain time or whatever. But obviously I would imagine the poor guy had to drive home as well. And it looks like he drove home with the plants if he had them with them. And I didn't get a chance to see him, which is it's a little upsetting. I don't think he made the trip especially to see me, but that was part of the reason for him being there, and I missed him. It can't have been by much. But as I said, we didn't get into the hall until 3:30, and as soon as I walked in the door I got collared. Somebody came up to talk about the minibus trip I'm doing in November, you know, which is quite important sort of thing. But by the time I'd thought, right, now where's this guy from Cornwall, he'd gone. So I missed him, which is a shame for both of us. But, so apologies there. I don't know whether he actually watches my videos. Probably won't now. Anyway, so that's that. And I'm not really going to do much more than that today. As I say, my daughter's down for the weekend, and I don't want to spend all my time messing about with filming and things when she's down. I don't see her very often. The Bulbophyllum Elizabeth Ann Buckleberry has now opened, this particular bloom. So these are now fully open. It deserves a close-up, but I can't, in this light, that's about as close as I'm going to get without going out of focus. Yeah, it's going to blur, I expect. But it's a lovely shaped, I call them hands. And they've probably got a technical name, but they look like hands, yeah? This type of Bulbophyllum anyway. So that one's open. The other spike is coming on, buried in there in the greenery. And my daughter was interested in that. She said she'd never seen what Bulbophyllums look like as the buds develop. She's only ever seen them in bloom. So yeah, the Arengus looks like it's just starting to go on the first spike. So I now know that these blooms last around 3 weeks, which was what I was expecting. That is around a typical time for Arengus blooms, around the 3-week mark. But we should still have this in bloom for some time yet, because the spikes over this side opened later. So yeah. Yeah, so I'm sort of, at the moment, I'm still stuck with the one type of Deesa, which is Cuensis. But hopefully these blooms will last a fair time. The last lot were very short-lived. They just didn't like blooming in that heat. The blooms keeled over quite quickly, which is a shame. Nonetheless, you know, we can't control the weather, that's for sure. And I did my best to keep things cool in here, but unsuccessfully, generally speaking. It got too hot in here too often, and it has set some plants back considerably. Some I don't think took any notice, like the Cattleyas. I mean, their ideal high temperature is 27, 28, not 32, 33, but they seem to have come through it okay, certainly given the number of buds and things that are going on, so it hasn't affected everything. Anyway, so a few apologies, and as I say, I'm not going to do a chat on a specific subject or anything today because I don't want to spend all day filming. And I'll do the draw, I'll film that obviously, and then we'll start again like tomorrow, Monday, with something more specific. And until then, bye for now, see you next time, thanks for dropping by. Oh, I must just add this on the end. One of the really good growers came up to me at the show, and he said, I was watching some YouTube videos, and I was watching Gardening at Derwentsa, and shoot, who should appear on the flipping screen but Roger Frampton. I thought to myself, he doesn't know anything about orchids. He was joking. Yeah. But yeah, that's another one I can add to the list of Orchid Society members that do actually watch some YouTube videos. As I said, a lot of them just don't use the internet at all. Yeah, so that's another one I can add to the list. I'll have to watch what I say now if he's watching. He is one of the good growers. And he also does hybridizing himself and things like that. You know, he's a great guy. But yeah, well, I hope he was joking anyway. See you next time.